I'm James Hogan.
And I'm Stacy Miller, and this is the December 2024 edition of Western Wednesdays.
Well, happy holidays from Cullowhee, North Carolina. Here, this is Western Wednesdays. I'm James Hogan, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Engagement. With me, Stacy Miller, Director of Alumni Engagement here at WCU. Stacy, it's December.
Yes, happy holidays!
Favorite time of the year.
That's right, my absolute favorite time of the year. I love Christmas. I love all things wintry and holiday.
We've already had a little snow in Cullowhee.
Yeah.
It's been getting cold and blustery and a fun time of the season. It's, time to wrap up our semester. Our students are, taking final exams and getting ready to go home for a break. And obviously it's been quite a semester.
Yes, it's been busy. We've had our ups, we've had our downs, and we've stayed, true to the Catamount way together and worked to get through it. And here we are. We're at the end of the semester.
And the end of a podcast
season.
Season.
What a great time we had with Sharon today.
Sharon Fenchak. So Sharon earned her MBA here at WCU in 2016, and she is the head winemaker for Biltmore Wines, which is part of the Biltmore estate. If you've gone to visit the estate, well, I don't know about you. It's fun to walk through the house. That's great. Yeah, we can see the art, we can see the nice furniture and et cetera. But then the fun part is at the end when you go to the winery and you have your complimentary wine tasting. Yeah. And Sharon's been there now 25 years and has just had an extraordinary impact on Biltmore Wines. And we got to talk to her.
That's right. And do a little wine tasting.
We
that was
did
exciting.
A little wine tasting.
Yeah.
She was so kind to bring us a few bottles of Biltmore wine.
How fun to learn all of the ins and outs of the science behind winemaking. And
the art.
And the art,
And the art. I know. We had... we had a great opportunity to hear some of the stories of these wines and hear about how they're made and distributed, and also I think we'll get into this in this interview, but we hear a lot about how Sharon takes her MBA and goes to work the next day and applies some of the things she's learned in the classroom through the MBA program. So it's a great interview. We're going to jump right to it. And my biggest apologies, folks, because you're not going to be able to taste the wines that we got to taste. And they were really good.
Really good.
All right, let's get to that interview now.
Let's do it.
Sharon Fenchak, welcome to Western Wednesdays here at our Cullowhee studio. Thank you for joining us from Asheville and from the Biltmore estate. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I know that it's we are happy to have you here. We had hoped to be with you at Biltmore on the estate. Originally, that was our plan to be there in the winery on the estate. Of course, Hurricane Helene back in September had just such a profound impact in Asheville, and we have a lot of alumni in Asheville. And I just wanted to start off by asking you to tell us quickly about what impact was that there on the estate?
Yeah, it had a really devastating impact to the whole Asheville area and several other counties around the area. So the situation was honestly surreal and really unbelievable, witnessing and seeing what happened, and really hit our hearts in the area. And, one of the most refreshing things to see was just how the community pulled together. The whole Western North Carolina area pulled together. Neighbors helping neighbors, friends helping each other, and all of the people from all over the United States providing the necessary things for our community to kind of come back together. Without that help and assistance, we still would not be where we're at today. So we have the idea of hope moving forward. The estate opened for Christmas at the beginning of November. So Christmas at Biltmore is happening right now. The winery is open, receiving guests. Our restaurants are open. Our hotel is opened, and hopefully the other will open very soon. It's slow progress, but Asheville and that whole area is about tourism,
Yeah.
bringing people to the area. So Biltmore is welcoming guests. The whole area is welcoming guests, and so we invite everybody to come and visit, explore, and enjoy Christmas and the holidays in the area.
And I know that it's a slow process.
Yes.
Recovery is a slow process. Just recently, Asheville was able to get potable water.
Yes.
After a long, trying time without it. But I get the sense that also in all of this, people need something that's fun. People need something that is good for their soul. And I think probably spending time on Biltmore. I know Stacy is so excited about Christmas at Biltmore. That's like Christmas is Stacy's jam. So I am sure that you bring a lot of joy to folks just right now seasonally when they need it a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, candlelights, we have a candlelight season at the Biltmore House at night, which, I mean, it's just the whole estate is illuminated, and it's lovely and beautiful. A daytime visit. The Biltmore House itself was really not affected that much from the storm.
Sure.
So it's still very much intact. The winery also. We also have a Chihuly exhibit going on right now at Amherst. And so, there's a lot of activity. And if people need kind of like a mini holiday and they don't want to go far away and they live locally in the area, it's a great way to kind of refresh, regroup, reconnect, and just have a moment of serenity in this craziness of a time.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I know that you have vineyards on the property, on the estate. How did those fare in the storm?
We have a 50-acre vineyard on the property, and so we grow Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, and Petit Manseng. And so up to the time of Helene, that was right in our harvest time, September, October.
Sure.
So we had harvested all of our Chardonnay and our Petit Manseng, thank goodness, and then we had just started to harvest the Cabernet Sauvignon. And we had some Cabernet Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon left to harvest. And so we did not, and were not able to harvest that before the storm. So those grapes had 20 plus inches of rain. And so, any agricultural crop with plus 20 inches of rain is going to be affected. But the week after the storm, I went out to the vineyard and was just surprised at how the grapes were still hanging on.
Really?
So we
Wow.
actually harvested that fruit the week later, and a lot of team members from other departments helped to harvest the fruit. And then we had our vineyard manager, Philip Oglesby, and his team help with that. He's an amazing vineyard manager. And, it was really kind of that community once again coming together to accomplish the task. And I was so proud of the team. We didn't have electricity until like the day before we harvested the fruit. So we were prepared with a generator to kind of turn that on and make it happen. But just that can-do attitude
Right.
is what I think was really helpful in getting those grapes in. And, everyone's very hopeful that I'm going to make an amazing wine out of these grapes. So
Yes, we are.
I'm doing the best I can with them. But, just seeing like the team and people coming together it just really fills my heart. And especially in times like this. So, and I'm going to do the best to make an amazing bottle of wine if I can.
Well, you've brought several bottles of wine with
did.
you, and we were joking before we started recording here today. This is the first wine tasting we've ever done on Western Wednesday, so we're not really used to this. This is maybe the most fun I think we're going to ever have. And so as we're talking through this interview, we're going to taste some wine, and we're going to do our best to describe it to you who are watching and or listening, and in as many descriptive terms as I can muster. But tell us what we're going to start with, Sharon.
Yes. Well, actually, we were just talking about the Biltmore Vineyard. And so this is actually a Chardonnay from our vineyard. It's a Blanc de Blanc, which means that it's 100% Chardonnay. And so this is from North Carolina grapes from 2019.
Interesting.
So, wine, wine is a very long process. Okay, so the grapes will normally not even be to maturity in the vineyard where you will be able to pick them and really feel them expressed correctly till about 5 years after you've planted the fruit.
Really?
So you have an idea now.
Right.
5 years later, you're going to get a result.
Yeah.
And then about 7 years later, you're going to actually, or 2 years after that, about 7 total years, you're going to actually be able to taste your product. So it's a very long game.
And you hope you're right.
And you hope you're right.
Because by then you've waited 7
Because
years.
if you're wrong, you have to go back and
Start all
redo
over.
it
Oh,
again.
yikes.
Yeah. So this is actually sparkling. So we do sparkling at Biltmore. It would be called champagne in Champagne, but because we're in the United States, we do not call it champagne. But it's made in the traditional method where the secondary fermentation actually takes place in the bottle. We're adding yeast, the nutrients, the sugar, everything to create those lovely bubbles that you see. So this has been aging on the lees for about 3 to 4 years. So it's extended lees. So you'll get a lot of interesting toasty notes from this sparkling, and it is dry. So we call that a brut sparkling.
Wonderful.
So James has actually gone to the rooms of some of the students and brought me these glasses. They are not traditional flute glasses, but we're going to make the best we can out of this sparkling. So I'm just saying that
And
up front,
apologies
okay?
to the students who
Yeah.
can't find their glassware right now.
Exactly. So I'm going to ask
by
you.
students, we really mean the alumni house.
Yes,
no panicking.
yes, the
Right.
alumni house, right?
Now, Sharon, why do you drink a sparkling wine out of a flute?
Well, you want to try to conserve the bubbles. The whole idea is that you're actually having all of those aromas and flavors come up in that little opening at the top. You
Yeah.
know, so you can drink sparkling out of any type of a glass, but
Okay.
typically it showcases better, and you want to be able to see the bubbles.
That's true too.
You know what I'm
and
saying?
You get the
Like,
whole
so-
show
yeah,
where it
exactly,
goes all the way up
exactly.
and out that way. So
So cheers.
cheers. And
To
to,
a-
Biltmore and
Thank
to the
you.
recovery and that great community. Cheers.
Thank you. So when you're tasting the sparkling, you want that nice kind of influx of bubbles as it's coming in. And so this is not a sweet sparkling, so it's drier. So typically when I'm doing a tasting, I'm going to start off with something that's dry and acidic at the start, and then I'll end with something a little bit sweeter. It's kind of a progression of the evening. So I would greet my guests with this in the holiday season as they're coming into my house. Usually it's always sparkling, as you're entering. And then I would slowly move them to like a dry white or rosé, and then a dry red, and then end with something a little bit on the sweeter side.
So bright acidic flavors here. And North Carolina grapes.
It is grapes from our vineyard from 2019. So 2019 was a pretty good year for us on the estate property. And so I do not make sparkling wine every year. So the
Interesting.
grapes almost have to be perfect. And so they have low Brix, which is the sugar level or measure of soluble solids, okay? It has to have a really nice acid and literally like nothing wrong with the grapes, just beautiful looking grapes, attractive grapes for sparkling to be made in North Carolina and other places also. So,
And is that because you're just making it a true white? You said blanc on blanc, or blanc de blanc, I think.
Blanc de Blanc.
And so you just have, it has to be right the first time.
Yes, you are not, when you're making sparkling wine, you cannot use any sulfites to help to inhibit any of the bacteria that might come. So you basically have to rely on a really clean fermentation. And so if there's any problems, any flaws, you're not able to really use sulfites in the wine. And so you have to follow that throughout the progression until you start to go through that secondary fermentation. So we typically would not add any sulfites or anything to the wine until it's disgorged, which is when you're actually removing the sediment from the bottle and then adding back a dosage to kind of add back a little bit of sweetness, some slight preservatives, and just a touch of cognac for a little bit of mouthfeel.
What a process. So you mentioned that you can't make the bubbly every year. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that go, that play into a good year? What was special about 2019, right? What was different?
Exactly. It's usually the weather.
Okay.
Really?
Like,
Yeah.
for instance, in a year that we might get 20 inches of rain, we probably would not choose to make sparkling wine from that if it hit. Because you really don't run any rots. You want no downy or powdery mildew. You just want really nice grapes that are just, just perfect. So nice acid, great weather, great sun, so yeah.
It's interesting to me too, and clearly winemaking in North Carolina is such a great industry now, and it hasn't always been that way. I shouldn't say that. It hasn't always been an industry, right? If you think about North Carolina agriculture, vineyards don't spring to mind. Tobacco does, or cotton does.
Right.
And so you've been at Biltmore now for 25 years. You came in 1999.
But I stayed 29.
But you stayed, tell me, okay.
29 years old.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
I'm not getting any
You're
older.
perpetually stuck.
I'm preserved.
Yes. Bottled.
That's pretty on brand.
Yes,
I love it.
yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
What was winemaking at Biltmore like in 1999? And how has that evolved? I know that
Right.
winemaking has evolved.
Right. So in 1999, one of the biggest things that I noticed, and I didn't realize it at the time, but years later, was that there weren't a lot of women in the industry. So typically the wine industry is around 12 to 15% female now. And so 25 years ago, that number was a lot lower. And so I didn't understand that hiring a female in the winemaking industry was a big deal.
But it was.
Yeah. Looking back on it, I did not have people that I knew that were women that were winemakers. And I didn't really think about it because I've been taught and raised to believe I could do whatever it is that I wanted to do. But there were, challengers with that. So I really thank my boss that hired me at the time. His name was Bernard DeLille. He's still here with us. So, and he retired in 2019. But understanding that he took a chance with me and gave me the opportunity to try. So it was kind of a big deal to have a woman, and the first woman winemaker, I think, at Biltmore. At that time, I was hired as the assistant winemaker and then promoted to winemaker about 3 years later.
So if you didn't really know, women in the industry because, there were so few of them, what made you choose this as a career path? How did you get into it?
Yeah, it's, I actually lived in Italy for a while. I was in the Army. And so I was stationed in Vicenza, Italy.
Oh.
And when at a very young age, before I could probably legally drink, and I tried a lot of wines. It was okay to drink in Europe at that time, right? And in the Army, but I kind of fell in love with the romance of wine, the idea of wine, and how it really brought people together and connected people. And you have a great bottle of wine with somebody, and you remember that wine forever, And so it's really that kind of connection and food and wine pairing that I was really interested in. And so when I got out of the Army and went back to the States, I started food science at Penn State.
Okay.
And so, kind of followed that path of wanting to be involved in wine. But I fell in love with the idea of it and, the romance part of it, I think, and then realized that it's a really hard job. And there's a lot of physicalness to it,
right.
And cleaning tanks and pulling hoses. And, you have to do your time a little bit in the industry before, you get to the level of actually making the wine.
So I can't go any longer without pointing out that this is the latest edition of WCU Magazine. It just came out fall of 2024. You're in it. We had a great story about you there at Biltmore. And in that story, you refer to winemaking as both an art and a science. I know you could probably tell us all about the science, where if you have this, right down to the meteorology that surrounds a vineyard, and probably right down to, what angle of sun the vineyard gets, and if the grapes are at the top of the hill versus the bottom of the hill, and things like that. Tell us, I'm just going to pull on this string about the romance of wine. Tell us a little bit about the art of the wine.
Yes, the art of the wine. I would say that it's very important that you get to know your consumers. Because the consumer that's in California and on the West Coast might be or could be different than the consumer that's in the Southeast in the United States. So really understanding your audience is extremely important, and who you're actually targeting with particular wines. So I think that's really important. The artistic part of it is, if you have great grapes, you're going to make great wine if you follow the correct path. The artistic part comes in when you don't have exactly great grapes.
Yeah.
And so you have to be creative. You have to think outside of the box, try some new products, the blending part of it. I call it the fine tuning of the wine, right before bottling. You might need to add 1% of this particular wine, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of acid. This kind of little tweaks to the wine right before bottling. And I always say wine is my boss. If I listen to the wine, it tells me what to do. And if I follow that path, I'm usually correct. But it's when I'm not listening to the wine that, I can make a mistake. And you cannot be lazy in winemaking at all. If there's a problem, you have to address it very quickly.
Listening to the wine and making sure that, because I was going to say, I imagine that from the time you harvest the grapes until when you bottle them is not a lot of time. So if you harvest the grapes, you bring them in and you realize, this is not the perfect grape, and so we need some art.
Yeah.
How much time do you have to figure that out and figure out what you're going to do with it?
Normally, you can make most of your big changes during the fermentation. So the fermentation would typically be 2 weeks, usually 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe at the max. And so you want to try to pay attention to the wine every day. So this is the science part of it. In the lab, we're checking, the densities, the pH, the TA, titratable acidity, the volatile acidity, the alcohols, the sugars, all of these things in the lab, every day or every other day, to make sure that the fermentation is going the way. I'm tasting and smelling the wines, and then smelling and tasting it, your palate becomes an instrument for the wine.
Sure.
So, with training over time, I might be able to detect something in the wine that's going on even before it shows up in the lab. And just knowing the wines and feeling the wines, you're able to kind of interpret what might be happening. And it might just be a sixth sense too, right? This doesn't seem right. This is not right.
Something's off.
Because this will be 29 harvests for me, and so
gosh.
it's, you're just kind of are in tune with the wine and the grape themselves.
Tell us about this next bottle.
Yes. Well, I'm going to have to pour you first. So this is our limited release Fumé Blanc. And so we recently changed the name of this. It used to be called Limited Release Sauvignon Blanc.
Thank you.
And so Fumé Blanc is just another name for Sauvignon Blanc, and it pretty much means that it's been barrel fermented in oak barrels. So what's really special about this wine and also our Biltmore Reserve Chardonnay is that they've both been aged in estate-grown oak. So we harvested oak from the estate property, and we actually made barrels out of that oak, and then kind of tied that into one of our or several of our wines that we offer at the estate. The Biltmore Reserve Chardonnay from the Biltmore Vineyard is one of those products. And I brought this for you to try because it's a relatively new kind of program for us, naming it Fumé Blanc.
Yeah.
So, and I was really surprised about the expression of the oak. I'm not going to tell you what it tastes like because I'm going to let you
Okay. Oh, this is going to be really
it.
fun.
All right. So,
Okay. Cheers.
cheers.
I can almost smell the oak.
I really like that.
Yes.
There's something that's very bright about this to me, and it gives me this kind of shocked feeling in my jaws almost. That's, and I don't know if that's acid or what, but there's something that's really refreshing about it.
One of the main things that I found with the Biltmore Oak and what made it so special to me were the notes of like toasted coconut and
Yeah.
kind of like pineapple and tropical notes that
Okay,
I never
thank
found
you.
out with the other.
I wanted to say that, and I felt like an idiot because you were going to say, no, it's grape juice, James, not pineapple juice.
No.
But there was something really bright,
Yeah.
and that must have been
Yeah.
it.
What I like with wine is that when you try it, you have all of these different levels of complexity. It's not just one thing, but you're like, oh, okay, I have pineapple, then I have smoke, then I have oak, then I have vanilla, I have toasted coconut. So it's like these layered flavors. And, I don't think that the wine should ever kind of like hit you in the face,
Right.
It should be
Right.
this like slow progression as you're taking
Yeah.
it in your palate from the front to the back and you're feeling all of these different flavors, aromas, sensations. And then I say to myself, what do I want to eat with this particular wine? Like that just is automatically where I go all the time. And I imagine, what would this taste great with?
So let me just ask a really dumb English major question here. When you say notes of coconut, notes of pineapple, when are you adding that in, or how do you achieve that, or is that a secret?
We are not adding that in at all. That is coming from the grape
No
and
kidding.
the oak itself. And when you barrel ferment something, it's a very exothermic reaction. And so the fermentation is taking place at the barrel. So it's hot. It's
Yeah.
heating up that barrel. So all those flavors are then being integrated into the wine. We are not adding any of that. That is coming from the grape, the maturation of the grape itself, how you fermented, the yeast that you use, and also the barrel and the barrel aging process that it goes through. So all of that there's nothing added to that.
If you had told me, though, honestly, that you
Yeah.
per gallon of white wine, you put in like a thimble full of coconut, I would have believed you, and I would have thought, because you tell that to me, and my brain
Yeah.
immediately can, on the second and third try, I can begin to taste those kinds of things. So that's fascinating.
And that's what I was going to say, but I am like increasingly fascinated that that's not the answer.
That's not the- no, it
That
just happened.
It is more of a science than, well, we wanted to taste like this. Let's add that in. No, it's grapes.
Right, it's grapes
It's
and how
grapes.
you treat the grapes, how the temperature you ferment it at.
Wow.
All of these different flavors, aromas are kind of like coming from that fruit. That's why the grape itself is so critical and essential in the process.
Yeah.
So we work with many different growers on the West Coast, in California and Washington. And so I source fruit from different areas.
Sure.
And so
Because you can't grow it all, even as big as Biltmore
No,
is.
right.
You can't grow it all.
And not all grapes would grow well in this area.
Absolutely right, yeah.
So, what you want to do, just like George Vanderbilt did, is he finds the best things and he brings it back to the estate, to
Sure.
the property. And so, our area is never going to be able to grow a great Pinot Noir because there's too much humidity. Riesling struggles, so why, we've tried it before, it didn't work. So we're going to go and source that fruit from the best areas, the finest areas, and then bring it back here and make the wine.
Wow.
And you do add the local flavor when you're introducing these into barrels from harvested
yes,
oak.
yes. And this is a product that's made here.
Yeah. It's aged here.
It's aged here. It's made here, and so it's no different than making beer in Asheville or making beer from other areas. We're not growing all the barley and hops and everything in this area, but it's bringing in work and industry to the local economy, which is critical, for these products that are made in this area.
This feels like a good opportunity to kind of turn toward the fact that you came to WCU in pursuit of an MBA, a Master's in Business Administration, and I still want us to keep talking about wine and grapes and things like that. But at some point, you have a background in food science. I know you went to Penn, and then also Georgia, I believe.
Yeah, University of Georgia and Penn State.
And at some point, though, you thought, well, I need to continue my education. I need to know more about business.
Yeah, so as you are in your career for a while, you've become more technically sound in the area of wine, the science of wine, and so I realized that where I needed some more experience was in the business of running a winery, and so as my boss was getting ready to retire in a few years, I thought that it would be advantageous to me to have that business knowledge. And, I didn't necessarily want to work on Wall Street or, be on the stock market or anything like that, but I wanted to understand the language of business. And I wanted to be included at the table and be able to speak the language. So I thought also that it would help me to then prepare for moving into his role and just understanding the business of wine and business in general. And when I first started in the program, I went to Biltmore Park, and I went for 3 years and worked full time. And so went to evening classes, and so that was really a great experience for me. And there were a lot of engineers also in my class.
Interesting.
And so just meeting all of these people with a ton of knowledge and experience, and it was a really, really positive experience. It was hard because I had to, you went to work all day, and then you went to class from 6 to 9, and then we may have visited a brewery after, with our classmates.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that was fun, and I always enjoy meeting the people, in education, and because you just have so many different types of experiences.
Right.
And the science mind and the business mind are really different. And I realized that in the first few classes, because the people that were more business motivated and had that business experience thought very differently than I did. And so, I don't know exactly what it was, but it was very different. And I'm more methodical in my process of thought, and I have to do a lot of research first before I typically give an answer. And so that was one of the differences, I think, with a lot of the people that had a business background.
Having been through a graduate program while I'm working, I know exactly what you mean. But I also wonder, too, like there were so many days where I would come to work knowing what we just, in class the night before. For me, with an education master's degree and then doctorate, I remember coming to work the next day like so excited because we just talked about this idea.
Right.
And immediately it clicks. Did you have those kinds of moments where you went back to the estate, to the winery the next day, and you're like, we've got to do this?
Well, I actually did a project on wine elasticity, and so that was kind of,
What is wine elasticity?
Just basically, if you raise the price, how does that affect sales?
Yeah.
So I did that with I did a research project on that, on like one of my papers in school was on that project.
That is
and so that was
fascinating.
it was actually a really good educational platform for me to kind of understand like how price affects sales.
Yes.
And so I learned that knowledge and then brought that back to the estate.
So I have to imagine when you're in these MBA classes, you're probably like really cool. Like Sharon also runs like this, nationwide wine distributing company over here, and also she makes wine, which is fun. Like, did you find your fellow classmates saying, "Hey"?
Well, I know that if we had a get together, I had to bring wine.
You did. You were
right.
hands down.
I had to bring wine, and what a better person to ask to a party, right?
That's right.
That's exactly it.
That's right.
So
Add
Oh, my.
Sharon to
Add
all
Sharon
invite
and
list.
wine, right?
Everything we do in Asheville from now on.
But
Oh, man.
a lot. I mean, everybody had cool jobs. Just one of the people that I worked with, he was just like a genius, and I won't call him out, but and I was just like, he is so smart, and I'm like, I want to hire him, but I'm like, he's not available for hire, so I'm like, I want all of the people that are working on these projects with me
Right.
to come and work at Biltmore with me because they all are so smart.
Yeah, you can
And
see the
and you're just like, this person would be great at this person would be great at
Right.
this person would be great at this, and I would a lot of the MBA was teams,
yes.
working in teams, working on projects, and so that was very different than science.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Science, you're working with your project, you have a lab, you have a major professor. Here, the MBA program was a lot of teamwork and understanding how to work in a team and come up with a goal and do a project together versus my other graduate degree was, more kind of Sharon working with her major professor to kind of come up with this goal. And in the MBA, it was like, working in teams.
Right.
And so that was a very different process for me, and trusting your teammates, trusting that they're going to do the work that they're going
Right.
to do, and everybody's going to do their little piece of the puzzle to kind of accomplish that end goal and get the grade that we want, which was hopefully always an A, right?
Which totally plays into what you're doing now, right? You talked about the vineyard manager. You talked about, the guy who chars the barrel, and and each person has their role in this process of these awesome bottles, that we see.
And so, it's like you could never do it by yourself.
Right.
Right. How big is the team in the winery?
Well, we have the cellar, which is people that are actually making the wine and, processing the grapes. We have the vineyard team. We have the bottling team. We have the warehouse team. We have a whole Biltmore marketing team and sales team, which is kind of like in a different department. But, and then all of the people that work in retail, all of the people that work on offsite sales. I don't know the exact number of everybody, but it's a good number of people that
It's
are
a lot of
employed.
people.
It is a lot of people, yeah. So, but it's like everybody has their little specialty, but we all have to do our individual jobs correctly to make sure that this product gets out on the shelf and is sold.
Yeah.
I'm like, kind of like, we're dressing it up. It's looking good. It's ready to go off and graduate.
Yeah.
And then, so we're hoping that whoever tastes it just loves it.
Oh, my gosh.
25 years later, and 25 years and an MBA later, what keeps you in the business, and specifically, what keeps you at Biltmore Estate?
Yeah. So every year's different.
Yeah.
Every year has a different challenge. The people also have a wonderful cellar manager that has been with Biltmore over 20 some years. And so there's a lot of long-time employees, and it's our family. And so I think that that's one of the biggest things is that, these people so well. And then, you want them to do well, you want them to thrive, and everybody kind of knowing what their part is and position in that role. And then also, too, we have a lot of newer employees during the pandemic, when that happened, and COVID. And, we had some turnover of employees because of furloughs, different things that companies
Sure.
had to do. And so now training new people to kind of replace you,
Yeah.
Right.
and it's hard to think about people replacing you, but, it's important to keep that tradition going.
Right.
And like making sure that the people that come after you want to be in this industry, are excited about it, and
Yeah.
want to thrive.
I wanted to ask you, I know that the Biltmore Estate certainly has a really wonderful winemaking story to tell. I'm sure that George Vanderbilt entertained his guests with the finest wines that he could bring to the Asheville area. I love that some of these bottles are crafted using oak that's been growing on that estate for decades. What's the story of the future for wine at Biltmore? Where would you like to see it continue to grow and expand?
Well, I would love for North Carolina to be recognized as, a wine growing state, wine making state.
Do you feel like it gets a little bit of a, people look down from their Napa Valley?
Well, we just don't have the same history as some of the places. I would say more globally versus the West Coast.
Yeah.
So, and that just takes time. And the more vineyards, the more wineries that are making really great wines, that helps.
Sure.
Biltmore just making a good or great wines will not make the region a great area and noted. We need people in North Carolina and on the Southeast and in the Southeast to make great wines so that the region, the area will be known in the industry as something special and unique. And so, it's just one person will not do it, So anytime a winery is making great wines in the area, I'm super proud of them, and we want to say, go for it, do it, because it only brings more credibility to Biltmore, to the North Carolina grape growing region and area and the wineries in the Southeast. So the more people that are making great wines, the better.
It's like you were talking about with the MBA program, it's a team effort.
Yeah.
You need everyone to succeed for you to succeed.
Yeah. If you think you can do it by yourself, you're always going to be wrong.
Yeah.
So it's, you need partners, team players, people to support you. You have to mentor people, have people grow and learn for, the next generation to be successful as well.
You've been very successful at what you're doing. And that success is shown by the number of people who continue to come back, right? But if this room were filled with students, what advice would you give them? Particularly students who may want to go into a tourism type industry like this.
Yeah, I think that one of my main drivers is that I'm passionate about what I do. I love what I do. I love making wine. And so you have to have a passion for what you're doing in your life and your career. If you don't have a passion for it, it's going to be hard. But if you have that passion and drive, every day is going to be kind of a new experience. You should never wake up for your job and say, "Oh, I dread going to work." Maybe 20% of the time.
Maybe Monday, yes.
20% of the time you might be like, "Oh," or 10%.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to work. I'm tired. I'm, whatever. But I would say 85 to 90% of the time, you should be excited about what you're doing.
Right.
And so if you're not excited, then you should probably change. And that could be getting an MBA. It could be doing another a field or career choice. And so, just life is short. It goes by very fast. And you have to be enthusiastic about what you're doing and have a passion for it. And if you have that, it's not going to be hard.
Sharon, thank you for making the trip over the Balsam Ridge down here to the Cullowhee Valley and sharing all of this wisdom and great wine with us. You're right. This is a bottle that I won't forget because this has been very special for me. I know it has been for Stacy. So thank you.
Thank you all. Have a happy holiday.
You too.
I think we should do more wine tastings on Western Wednesday.
Absolutely. That was a great time.
I loved it. I think What a great story. What a really cool career.
Yeah.
I love this idea of the romance of wine and I can also, I've had the great fortune of traveling in Italy. I can totally see how you go, particularly as a young person, just fall in love with that.
Yeah.
And you can see that passion.
Right.
In the way she
and
talks
it's so
about it.
unique, right? And what I found, like the parallel between the uniqueness of the Army to winemaking to what she talked about with the differences of the wines and how
Right.
she goes about making them.
Right.
How neat.
Well, and it is a business.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, yes, you have to make the wines. You have to know what you're doing. You have to have the science background to it, but you also have to be able to manage logistics, right?
Right.
These bottles don't just get everywhere. Like you have to box it up. You have to put it on trucks. You have to get it all the way. You have to know what you're doing and distributing and
Shout
and all
out,
of that.
kudos to that Western Carolina University MBA program
know.
and the opportunity given to non-traditional students, right?
That's it. One of the great parts of our graduate programs, awesome way for folks who are in their careers, who are working, and they're not full-time students. They go to work in the
Yeah.
day, and then they do that. I just want to reference again Sharon's story in the latest edition, the fall 2024 edition of WCU Magazine. Folks, this is a beautiful magazine that our University Communications and Marketing puts out. You can read Sharon's story. There's a lot of other great stories about alumni and folks here on campus, and hopefully that's in your mailbox. Otherwise, you can find it online at wcu.edu. You can find the link to the magazine there. So go give that a look, and you can read more about Sharon and her work there. Stacy, this is the end of season 3
Yes.
of Western Wednesdays. Can you believe it?
No, it's been such a quick year of interviews and such an exciting time to get to meet and interview and talk with some of our alumni and capture some of the successes that they've had and sharing that with our alumni and fan base.
And it's such an interesting group of people too. We had Debbie Wright. Passion is overrated, but she's a barrier breaking executive in top companies in the United States. We had Manny O'Mitchell.
That's right.
Olympian.
Yep, former Olympian and future Olympian
I
as
know.
well.
We've still got to find out if we're going to make a trip to the Winter Olympics and do another interview.
Heather Smith and Abby Bentley.
State Teacher of the Year, beginning Teacher of the Year for North Carolina, which was extraordinary. JT Poston, PGA Tour winner.
PGA Tour winner.
Comes on Western Wednesdays, and by golly, right after that, wins a tour
That's right,
event.
A equals B.
Dale Collins, Preston Jacobson talking to us about waterways here. Obviously, with a hurricane, that becomes a really interesting topic. And so many other interviews here.
Such an exciting season.
I hope that you all listening or watching, that you guys have had a chance to check all of those interviews out, because there's some really, really cool stories.
That's right. Also included in the course of time, right? We just wrapped up Giving Tuesday.
Yes. Oh, a great success. And thanks to everybody who supported WCU. Thanks to those who joined the Catamount Club, as that was a big part of our challenge in supporting WCU athletics and our student athletes. This episode is dropping right after Giving Tuesday. It always takes us a little bit to count everything up and make sure everything adds up correctly. And we'll have a story out, probably an email soon to you, to announce the total progress of that. But great day all around.
An awesome example of, the best ways to support our university, support your alma mater by, participating in Giving Tuesday, be it your first gift, be it a $10 gift, right? Just jumping in whatever way everyone did to support Western.
Something else that happened last month was we celebrated legacy pinning, which is always so fun. We had over 400 people, students who were sons, daughters of WC alumni. Sometimes it was their aunts or uncles who came to Western,
That's right.
grandparents.
Siblings.
It was a
Pinning siblings.
great time. But that reminds me that come December 14th, we get to turn on the alumni making machine.
That's right.
It's
Welcome
commencement.
a whole new class, a whole new graduating class to the
December
alumni
graduation.
family.
Oh, I love commencement. It's always fun. You see a lot of hard work paying off, and people reaching the end of their journey here at WCU and ready to go out into the world and wear purple and gold, I hope. Yeah.
That's right. James, we can't sign off without, we love to share our events, our upcoming things happening. So For those of you, the Charlotte area, Catamounts and beyond, we've got an event coming up, the Coaches Caravan.
Yeah.
It's coming to Charlotte.
We're going to bring a whole bunch of WC coaches. We used to do this event a lot in Charlotte where we'd get a bunch of people together, usually right before the holidays.
Yeah.
This one is December 18th, so the week before Christmas. Come join us. If you are anywhere near Charlotte, you are welcome to jump in the car.
That's right.
Alumni.wcu.edu/events. You can find all the information there. We also have to tell you to like and comment and subscribe. Follow us online. Share this episode, if you will. Help us to continue building this Western Wednesdays audience. And I have to say a huge thanks to Sam Wallace with University Communications and Marketing, Paul Gardner, Charlie Bulla, Brett, I'm Priya, all these great people in UCM who help make this a reality. I know it's a rotating cast from one show to the next, but thanks to all of those folks. And thanks to you for tuning in, listening, and watching Western Wednesdays. It's been a lot of fun. We can't wait to come back in January of 25.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. You guys stay safe, hang in, and we'll see you soon for season 4. And as always,
Go Cats.